Now that the logo is done, we are at the point where we can start designing the site. And designing the site means first and foremost looking at the header. Now also obviously it means looking at the footer, which we haven't done anything with yet, but it means looking at the header first. And looking at the header means looking at menus. So what I have done is I have actually done quite a bit of prep work for this tutorial, because this is actually going to take a while, even with the prep work that I did. So what I did is, let me just ungroup these. I grabbed one of the menus that they have here in the menu and anchor thing. I think, as far as I can remember, I think it was this one right here, and I have modified it. So this is what it looked like when I first pulled it out of that tab and put it on the page, and these are the ones that I made. And what you will immediately notice, and I have a couple of other groups as well that I'm going to show you, what you will notice right away is that what I've done first and foremost is I have made everything a lot smaller. And now there's no reason why your menu should be huge. It should not be bigger than the other elements that are going to be all over the place here on your page. It should not compete with those. It will be on every page, it will be in the header, but it has to read very easily. Obviously, there's no doubt about that at all, but there's no reason why it should be this big. So let me just start with this one right here. Now, there are two things here that you need to pay attention to, and I'm going to go through both of them. Now, in the layout, it tells you a lot of things about what you can do with the actual menu itself, but then it also tells you all the things that you can do with the submenu, which is just popped out now. And one of the things, oh, okay, let me just go back to this one here and show you exactly what it was like. The submenu looked like this. This is the default. It said that it's arranged in columns, which means that it's right here. It's huge, as you can see. So that was one of the first things that I changed. I made this come underneath this here, because if it's here, people can't even really see it. They can't even associate it with this particular thing. So I have no idea why they made the default design like this, but it looks like a real mistake. So that's the first thing that I changed. I changed it from this to this. And then I'm actually going to continue with this here. I think that's going to be smarter. Now, in this particular menu, you can design the menu container, you can design the menu items, and when you get to those, you can change the text. In default, it's Helvetica and 16 pixels. Made that a whole lot smaller. They also give you a chance to play around with the character spacing, which is nice. Not all of them do that, but this particular one does. And then you can decide on the colors for the hover. When you go over the link, here it says that it's blue. It's I think it's this blue right here. And then you can also decide on the color of the current page, which is a little bit darker. It's a slightly darker blue. It's not exactly the same thing, I don't think. And then regular, it's black. Huge letters, huge font size letters. Sorry, made a mistake there. And just looks very, very big, very clumsy. Now, what you can also do is you can design the submenu container, which is the background here. So I can reduce the opacity of that. I can get rid of that. They have it like this, and then you can also design the submenu items individually. And again, with that you can change the text, you can add borders, you can even put a radius on your on these things and stuff like that. So anyway, so there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and like I said, it goes in 4 pieces, so you design each piece individually. So now let's come here and let's look at what I did. Now let's go back to the layout. The items, it says should they scroll or should they wrap. I just kept it at wrap because I don't have that many items. If you have a scroll, then it would just scroll over to the right. You can decide on the horizontal spacing between the items. I kept that at 0. You can also decide on the vertical spacing between the items, if of course you have them going in 2 lines. Items fill the whole menu. I have that checked. If I uncheck that, then they all bunch up in one corner, which I don't want. The text gets aligned on the left. That's how I wanted it. So if you make it like this, then it will just move over, but it's better to keep it aligned. Display items from left to right or right to left. Item padding, horizontal padding. If you increase this, your bar is going to get fatter, and also it's not only going to happen in this direction but also in this direction. So also some of the things will then move over to the one below. So I don't want that. I want this to stay at 0. Now the vertical padding will make the bar wider or narrower. I want it to be well, I don't want it to be this narrow. I want it to be something like this, so that I have a little bit above and below. And that's what and all of them are actually, I just made this one first, and then all the others are just alternatives of that, where I just made a few little changes. Then we come to the design, and we go to customize design, and again the menu container, the background fill is white in this case. So if I put this on a dark background, it would actually be a white bar. So let me just show you what I mean by that. It would be like this. Now if I were to make that background transparent, and I have one like that as well, then this is black text obviously, so you can't see anything, but then there's an alternative of that right here, because I also made those alternatives to be able to show you. This is the same exact layout, but here in this particular case, let's see, the menu container, the background fill is set at 0, so you only see the text and not the background, which is actually a better way to do a menu, but I just made these to show you exactly how it works. Now again, you can give radiuses to your corners, so you could make this, let's say if I make it 6 and then it's linked in the middle, so then okay, I made it like this. Let me just show you what the change is here. If I bring this down here, now the menu is going to have slightly rounded corners, and then if I increase this even more, then it would be even more rounded like this, but I don't want that. I want a straight corner, because I usually don't like those little numbers, let's say. I don't really like them. I like to keep things as straight as I can possibly get them to be, because graphic design is not about cute little numbers, it's more about how you bring elements together and create a whole out of them, and the cute little numbers can end up becoming quite distracting. Now, you can add a border to this if you want to. So these are all set at 0 pixels, but if I were to make this 1, then here's what would happen. I would start getting a box around it. I don't want that, so let's go back to 0. Again, the whole trick with designing stuff, and this is kind of like the first layout tutorial that I think we're having here, is keep things simple. Keep things simple. When you put something on something, like for example a border, like let me just go back here and show this to you again. So let's say I want a 1 pixel border, and I also want this to be darker so that we can see it even better. Now, did we really need that? Do we really need that? Now, we would maybe conceivably need it if we were to put this on a background which was very close to white, but then also very busy, and we wouldn't want it to get lost or something like that. But normally, from an aesthetic point of view, from a visual point of view, we don't really need it. There's a very famous saying by a very, very famous architect and designer called Ed Sullivan, who was the professor of the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who coined that famous phrase, less is more. And that is really true. Less is more, and ornament is crime. The less you have of something, the more effective it usually ends up being. Now, let's continue. You can add a shadow if you want to. You would need to enable that from somewhere, I suppose. Yeah, I guess that's how it works. Okay, but again, it's the same question. Do we need a shadow here? We might need a shadow if we are going to put this somewhere where we would need to accentuate it and keep it separate from the background and things like that. Then we might want to have a shadow, in which case we would probably maybe want to blur it out a little bit, increase the distance, and then decrease the opacity of it, so that it just becomes very, very subtle. Maybe there's a usage for it, but I don't really see how, normally, under normal circumstances. Now, then we go on to the next part, where of course there are also background fills, but these are set at 0 because there's also already a background fill on the on the menu container. However, what we could do is we could make something like this, but then this would only work if we actually pull this menu out so that there's space between the items. No, it doesn't even work then. So this is something quite useless, and I have no idea why they even put that there. I thought maybe it made separate boxes or something, but it doesn't seem to. So let's go back to the menu items, and now here we come to text. And the thing with this particular template that I'm now modifying is that it will only accept the text if it's actually a style, which I've discovered while I was working with it. So what I actually had to do is I had to go back in and change these two headings to very small pixel sizes, so that I could actually use them as text for this menu. You can't just put in any text that you want. It has to be a heading, otherwise it won't accept it. It starts screwing up. So if you want to use this template, then you should have in your site styles, you should have certain headings designated to be that. Again, we can put borders if we want to at the top. Well, here they're all set at 0. I don't have any, but you could. What this does is, if I now let me unlock this, and then bring this up to 1, and then let's do a preview, because I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to see that. Yeah, when you click over it, it just gives it a little, well, it's probably white right now, so you can't really see it, but it gives it a top border, which might be a nice element too, and also an element that where you wouldn't ask yourself, well, why do I need this? Because we would need to make this quite a bit darker, I suppose, in order for it to actually show. Oh, I know what I did. I put that on the regular, and I should have put it on the hover. So, which is good, because that way I can. Now I put this on the regular, and on the regular I don't want anything like that. I want everything to be at 0. But then when I go to hover, then I want it to actually well, I want to unlock this. Sorry, I'm going to unlock it first, put in 0, but then I'm going to unlock it and just put 1 into that. And now if we take a preview, then it's still not doing it, which doesn't actually surprise me that much, because there's a now it did it. It needed a little bit of time to refresh itself. Now when I hover, then on the top it starts giving me a line, which might be quite a nice effect. No harm in that at all. And then when we come to the menu items, then we also have the current page, and there we also can play around with all of these borders, and so for example, something you could do is you could make it 3, so that when you are on the actual page, then it's actually a big fat one. So that's quite nice as well. So that on the page itself, we're on the home page right now. I mean, this isn't on the on the header yet, but it's still working like that. It recognizes the home page. So on the home page, we have a thick top border, and then on the other ones, again, I think this would only really work when you publish it and look at it like that. In this preview, it doesn't give you the correct preview, and also it gives you like a little red intermediate thing as you are scrolling around. Those I think all have to do with the preview. Now let's continue, and let me just go back to the text. So this is the heading number 6, and if I try to change this to something else, to let's say Barlow medium, okay, then everything gets screwed up. It goes back up to 15 pixels, which it wasn't. It was actually, let's see, let me go back here, and text, it's 13 pixels, heading 6, and I made that 13 pixels. Now, I mean, in the site styles I made it 13 pixels. If I just decide to go and change that to something else, it immediately, everything changes. It goes back to 15 pixels, and then the character spacing changes, everything changes. So you really have no choice but to actually create a style before you can use the text for this. Now, something else I want to point out to you. Now, even on this one here and all of these ones here, I made all of the pages uppercase, all of them big letters, not small, lowercase, all uppercase, and there's a reason for that, and I'm actually going to zoom in and show you what that is. Now, when you have all uppercase letters, what happens is that you have a very nice top line, which is all equal and all aligned, and then you also have a very nice bottom line. But then when you have upper and lowercase letters, then you obviously you have dips and things that come out and things that go down. That's the nature of lowercase. And in situations where you are only using little pieces of text, like this is just little words here, right? It's not a full sentence, or it's not a paragraph or anything like that. All uppercase actually looks much better. So for menus, and if you look around on the internet, you will see that a lot of designers have actually sussed this, and menus are usually all uppercase, because they really do look much better when everything is uppercase. So I'm going to change this now. I actually waited for this tutorial to do that. I can only do that from the manage pages thing, so I'm just going to rename this and just make it all uppercase. And oh, it took me to the shop where we had these two things. When I added the shop, I actually brought them to this page because I didn't want them on the home page. So let me just go back to the home page. So now this looks much nicer and cleaner and things like that. Now these here are just variations of that, and this one too, where I just changed on the current page, on the page that we are on, I just changed the background. So let me just show it to you here. So on the menu container, the background fill is a dark gray, okay? But then on the menu items, on the regular there's no change, on the hover there's no change, but on the current page I actually have this gray here. So it's showing me what's happening right now. And then also with the text, here I don't have an underline, here I don't have an underline, but on the current page I do have an underline. So when I close this, it looks like this. And then with these here, it's the same thing. There's a white background here, and then only the current page is black, and same thing here. These are almost identical. I have no idea why I have two of them. And then I also made alternatives of these to put on dark backgrounds when we get to the header tutorial. So let me just take all of these and just delete them, because I want to show you one more thing. Now, there are other ones that I made. I'm just going to just put this here real quick. So this is one that has these top and bottom lines. This is what it looked like when I first put it on the page. This is what it looked like, and this is what it ended up becoming. Again, same thing. All the text ended up becoming smaller. Here I actually have a bold one, because small text but bold can look very, very nice. And then also one other thing that I want to point out while I'm here, everything I make is usually black, white or gray. I'm not using any color, not even for the hovers or anything like that. And there's a reason for that, because first of all, in graphic design, we have this habit of thinking of all text elements, and the menu is a text element, it's a typographic element, in these non-colors, black, white and gray, because they will get combined with a lot of colored stuff like photographs and vectors and this and that. And so we just have this habit of keeping all text items neutral, and so that's another thing that I want to draw your attention to. Don't try to put color, or at least too much color, or at least not in such a way that we can see it all the time, like with this here, for example. I mean, this is a very, very soft color. It doesn't make a difference. It's still a color. And what if I were to put this on top of a red image? What would happen then? You always have to think about it like that, because these typographic elements will end up getting combined with things, and those things will have color. So I'm just going to add this here now, okay, here it is. So we also have vertical menus. So this is what it looked like when I got it out of the tab, and this is what it ended up becoming. So what I did is, first of all, again, I went to the menu layout and I decided how do submenus open. It could also open to the left. I kept it to the right also, but it could also open to the left. But then when I clicked on this and I went to customize design, it actually shows me these alternatives at the top here, and I decided to choose this one, which gave me this, which looks awful the way it is, because all of these are much too far apart. They need to become much closer to each other, and this home, nobody can even read it. It needs to change, and lots of things that need to happen to it. So I'm not going to go into all of that. It's basically the same thing. You just click on the design, and then you very patiently start customizing everything. And then with the other one that we were just looking at, it actually gave you a preview while you were designing. This one doesn't. So you have only one choice. You have to go to preview and then check and make sure that everything is actually working correctly. Now on this page I have 2 subpages that I made just to show you. I have no intention of filling them. I just made them to show you how the menu would work in that case. Otherwise we can't see it. So you can use vertical menus and you can use horizontal menus, and the whole thing is how you put them on the header together. Do you have a big header? Do you have a small header? What else goes on the header? Should anything else go on the header? All of these issues we are going to look at in the next tutorial, which will be actually about placing the menu on the header, and I will see you then.